According to Alternatives Journal, on average it takes 2,700 liters of water to make one cotton t-shirt. That is enough water for one person for 900 days. Globally, 80 billion pieces of new clothing are purchased each year, translating to $1.2 trillion annually for the global fashion industry, according to the Environmental Health Journal. The modern-day fast fashion approach to clothing production has a larger impact on the environment than many people know. Through my research, I have learned that fast fashion is a global environmental issue on every level of production, and that there are ways to fight fast fashion through consumer choice. We all wear clothes and to some extent participate in fashion trends. I'm sure most of us can think of pieces in our own closet that have been worn a few times in the past but have since lost utility because they fell out of trend. What did you do with those clothes? Throw them away? Donate them? Are they still in your closet or in a box somewhere waiting? I'm here today because our environmental and ethical future depends on our choices today. Regardless of our age, we should be making decisions for the betterment of our future, both environmentally and in ethical labor. So today, I'm going to explain the problem with modern fast fashion practices and how you can fight them. Let's start with the problems with fast fashion. Fast fashion production involves several types of hazards to the environment as well as to humans. There are environmental hazards created during the production, occupational hazards, and the leftover waste created by fast fashion. Let's consider the first step in creating fast fashion, environmental hazards created during production. According to the journal Environmental Health, around 90% of the clothing sold in the United States is cotton or polyester. Cotton requires large amounts of water and pesticides to grow, and polyester is derived from oil. Dyeing textiles is also a huge problem because most of the wastewater goes into the local water systems, contaminating them with heavy metals and other toxic substances. The next problematic step in the process of creating fast fashion involves the occupational hazards for the workers who create fast fashion. Again, according to the journal Environmental Health, the global textile supply chain employs over 40 million workers around the world, with lower middle-income countries producing 90% of the world's clothing. Due to the often poor political infrastructure and management, occupation and safety standards are very often not enforced in these lower middle-income countries. The result is a multitude of occupational hazards, including respiratory problems due to poor ventilation, musculoskeletal problems from repetitive motion work, etc. Reported health outcomes in these lower middle income countries include lung disease, cancer, damage to the endocrine system, adverse fetal outcomes, overuse injuries, and death. Now, it would seem that getting these garments to high-income countries' consumers marks the end of the fast fashion cycle, but in reality, the effects of fast fashion continue far beyond after the garment is sold. The fast fashion model is hinged on viewing clothes as disposable. The Environmental Health Journal explains that the average American throws away approximately 80 pounds of clothing a year, occupying nearly 5% of landfill space. The clothing that does not get put in landfills ends up in the secondhand clothing trade. Approximately 500,000 tons of used clothes get shipped from the United States each year, and most of these clothes end up right back in lower middle income countries. This time, however, clothes that don't get used, which is quite a bit considering how much is thrown away in the US, usually end up becoming solid waste in these lower middle income countries, clogging rivers, parks, anything, and creating even more environmental hazards for these countries that often lack robust municipal waste management systems. Finally, there are some countries lagging behind in chemical regulation. According to the Pakistan Textile Journal, the European Union's legislation regulates the use of more than 300,000 harmful substances used in textile, clothing, and footwear. There is also a set maximum chemical limit for textiles, clothing, and footwear products that come into contact with human skin. That is not the case in most places. For example, Australia is considered a higher income country, yet only 50,000 substances are overseen by the National Industrial Chemicals Notification and Assessment Scheme. Australia also has no legally prescribed limits for the use of those substances in textiles. In fact, the Pakistan Textile Journal cites a report of a case of a woman who suffered chemical burns from new shoes when they got wet in the rain. Tests by Monash University showed that the shoes were treated with a fungicide and rubber accelerator, which was released when the shoes came in contact with water. Imagine what is happening in other countries with little to no chemical regulations at all. Now that you are aware of some of the problems with fast fashion, let's look at some solutions. Change must happen at the top level of the fashion industry. Retailers need to source sustainable materials and decarbonize their supply chains. Luckily, fast fashion can be met head-on to avoid some of the damaging effects by global citizens everywhere through consumer choices. Here are 6 ways to fight fast fashion. 1. Shop from sustainable and ethical fashion brands. Paying attention to where you shop is one of the best ways to ensure your clothing choices are not harming the environment or other people. This also helps promote fair working practices for people around the world. Sustainable brands should pay attention to every step of the supply chain involved in producing and selling their products. This includes sourcing recycled materials and ensuring garment workers are paid a fair wage. Next time, before making a purchase, check out the brand's mission statement, values, and policies to see if they align with sustainable fashion. Be careful though, because more and more brands are popping up with claims to meet new demands for environmentally conscious clothing, but fast fashion retailers are seriously lacking when it comes to disclosing their practices relating to human rights and environmental practices. Checking how a brand ranks in the Fashion Transparency Index is a great way to combat lack of transparency. Number 2, buy less often and buy high quality. Fast fashion marketing has convinced us that we need to have the latest style to be fashionable and happy. However, these styles are cheaply made, don't hold up, and require us to buy more. Raising your quality standards is another way to fight fast fashion. I know 4 of the same t-shirts made out of the same thin material with the same side seam creeping towards your belly button because it was cut incorrectly is very tempting. Imagine though that you purchase one t-shirt made from 100% sustainably sourced cotton. You would look better, feel better about your choices, save money over time, and even have less laundry to do. This is a clear win-win-win-win situation. Number 3, donate or sell gently used clothing. Outgrowing clothes or moving to new climates is the perfect opportunity to give your clothes a second chance at life. There are countless ways to redistribute clothes. Donation centers, resale boutiques, consignment stores, etc. are all available options that are all over the U.S. Just make sure they are washed in good condition before you give them away. Number 4, buy or rent secondhand clothes. If you are someone like me who enjoys shopping to refresh your wardrobe, thrift stores are always a great option for unique and vintage styles. If that is not something you are interested in, more and more retailers are embracing a second-hand model. According to globalcitizen.org, an action platform dedicated to the end of extreme poverty, there's a debate going on whether renting clothing is better or worse for the environment than throwing clothes away. The impacts of transportation and dry cleaning imply that maybe renting isn't a much better option, but members of the rental fashion industry challenge this statement, claiming that renting clothes can extend the life of garments that would otherwise go into a landfill and overall slow down consumer consumption, thus reducing carbon emissions. Utilizing new online thrift stores and renting retailers are just one way to take a stand against fast fashion. Number 5, recycle textiles and garments. Some fashion retailers like Madewell, Levi's, and H&M recognize their harmful impact on the environment and are taking steps to reduce their carbon footprints by giving consumers the opportunity to recycle their old clothes. In some of these programs, your old socks or torn jeans can be reused as material for new clothes or be turned into insulation for houses. Check out clothing recycling centers near you or research your favorite retailers to see if they have similar programs. Number 6, repurpose old clothing. Sometimes there are no recycling programs available for types of garments or garments that are too damaged. If this is the case, repurposing clothing into something new is a great solution. Cleaning cloths, stuffed animals, t-shirt quilts, scarves, etc. can all be created from the items that you have at home. To wrap things up, there is not one direct path to creating a sustainable fashion industry. Several options and combinations can reduce the effects on the environment and ethical labor. Environmental and occupational hazards during production, along with environmental hazards after production, decidedly aren't worth the benefit of disposable fashion. Luckily, there are several things a consumer can do to lessen the impact of fast fashion, like shopping from sustainable and ethical fashion brands, buying less often and buying high quality, donating or selling gently used clothes, buying or renting secondhand clothes, recycling textiles and garments, and repurposing old clothing. I'll leave you all with a question. What if you or your children happen to be born in a country so polluted by textile waste that the drinking water could kill you, and you had to work for $38 a month in the very plant that's contaminating your water, air, and health?